goes to.
Sometime around the year 1000, rumors of Christian children being abducted by Jews who allegedly drained their blood to make matzah began circulating around Europe, leading to some mass executions and ethnic cleansing. Images of babies being tortured by Jews were painted on cathedral walls to incite the hatred. For centuries, most Christians have been intentionally kept illiterate, and only priests, monks, and those of noble birth taught to read and write. Jewish children, on the other hand, like their Muslim cousins, were literate and educated in the basics of math. This imbalance undoubtedly led to envy and fear. Jews had evolved as intellectually superior to the peasant underclass, which is why they've won a fifth of Nobel Prizes, despite being a mere 0.2% of the population. Manipulating people with blood libel scams worked for a long time and kept peasants focused on hating Jews rather than toppling the predatory oligarchies that enslaved them. But eventually the story began to fade simply because there never was a shred of truth. But in 1903, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion appeared, alleging a secret council of Jewish leaders was planning to instigate a world war, a document initially circulated by Russian secret police. Russia was the world powerhouse in oil at the time and were pumping half the world's crude. An operation divided between a Russian oil company, the Rothschilds, and the nobles. In America, Rockefeller was making similar moves to capture the North American oil industry. In 1905, Vladimir Lenin created the Bolsheviks, who quickly attracted funding from J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller. Within a decade, the Tsar was dead, Lenin in power, and control of the Russian oil fields up for grabs. Armand Hammer was installed as the go-between for American big business. At its core, Marxism was a science-based religion designed to supersede outdated magic-based religions. Immense Vatican resources were immediately mobilized to prevent its spread. An alliance was forged with the capitalist WASPs, aided by the Knights of Malta and boners from Yale. On November 13, 1918, a strange document was circulated at the highest levels of the State Department titled Bolshevism and Judaism. It included various memes lifted straight from the protocols and also alleged the Russian Revolution had been financed primarily by Jacob Schiff along with the Kuhn-Loeb Company, known agents of the Rothschilds. According to a British intelligence source, there was definite proof communism was an international movement controlled by Jews. This meme also appeared in Germany to assist the rise of the Nazis. In fact, Schiff had been a strong opponent of Lenin and Trotsky, and the Rothschilds lost their Russian oil connection with the murder of the Tsar. And while it's true nearly 20% of the original communists in Russia were Jewish, most, like Trotsky, disappeared early on and were deported, murdered, or sent to Siberia. During World War I, the oil fields of Russia, once the largest producer in the world, remained dormant, something that undoubtedly benefited Rockefeller's rise to power. In 1924, after Lenin's death, Stalin took power and began investing heavily in revitalizing the oil fields. He hired the Koch family to build a series of refineries, which is why they are among the richest families in the world today. Founder of the CIA, Allen Dulles, plays a role in this story. His grandfather was Secretary of State under President Harrison, while his uncle served that same post for President Wilson. His brother was head of Wall Street's old money law firm, Sullivan and Cromwell, and became Secretary of State. The Dulles brothers rose to the tippy top of Beltway power, thanks in large part to support from their by-marriage cousin, David Rockefeller. Dulles was educated at Princeton and always a bit sensitive about his club foot. He became a spook out of college and went directly into the diplomatic corps and became sheep-dipped as a knight in shining armor by returning from Europe in 1922 to write an expose on the protocols in the New York Times, where he revealed the protocols' cribbed material from a variety of sources, meaning they weren't secret notes from a World Council of Jewish leaders. When old money has plans for one of their nights, they make them an important influencer fast as possible. Sort of like the way skull and boner John Kerry was run around the jungle in Vietnam for a few minutes to appear as a valiant soldier in combat mode, when really he was faking it for the cameras and never in any sort of danger, all preparing him for a future role as the nation's leading anti-war vet. Something similar happened with young Dulles. In 1940, he went to work for William Stevenson, head of British intelligence in North America. They had friends on Wall Street funding the rise of Hitler and communism in hope of producing an epic clash of cultures that might be milked for profit for years. The military-industrial complex was but a gleam in their eye and speck in their heart, but within a few years it transformed into the dominant force in America. So when you pass along those phony social media posts alleging the Rothschilds own all the central banks or the Jews are evil, keep in mind this is a well-worn trail blazed by intelligence agents. Whenever race is deployed to incite fear, it's always a hoodwink. Religion is a tool for keeping people brainwashed, and by pitting religions against each other, war for profit is easily manifested. The masters of war have been running these games for a long time. In 1991, another chapter on the protocol story appeared when former Navy officer William Cooper published Behold a Pale Horse, a crazed rant claiming the Illuminati were working with aliens to control and manipulate events, and that the driver William Greer had killed JFK with an alien weapon because he was about to reveal the true story of alien interventions. Notice how a bit of real information, CIA killed JFK, is discredited by leading it down a rabbit hole. William Greer did strangely come to a near stop in the kill zone, just as a nearby pedestrian unfurled an umbrella. But he certainly did not shoot JFK, although a doctored version of the Zapruder film was soon circulating, in which the glare off a bald head in the passenger seat was made to look like a revolver going off in Greer's hands. Cooper kept releasing amazing kernels of truth inside his disinfo dumps because that's the best place to hide truth. Cooper claimed AIDS had been man-made, not mentioning the most likely scenario, which is it resulted from monkey kidneys being used to grow vaccines, a relatively short-lived process, yet this is how the original polio vaccine was grown, and we know it was contaminated with SV40. Cooper claimed the global conspiracy fomenting world war in the 1900s wasn't Jewish at all. They were Freemasons, and specifically the Illuminati. And Yale Skull and Bones was a main chapter. He claimed children were being put on drugs and hypnotized to create school shootings. Cooper became the foundation upon which the phony QAnon conspiracy crowd was constructed, while his book became the most widely read tome in the prison system. Manufactured whistleblowers can be divided into two categories. The tinfoil hat patrol, characters like Cooper and David Icke and Alex Jones, who steer deep state research into rabbit holes, and the shining knights like Alan Dulles, John Kerry, Daniel Ellsberg, and Edward Snowden. But in 2001, Cooper began dropping his biggest bombshells. The alien documents he'd been shown were all fakes, and there were no aliens. He predicted the deep state was planning an operation to jumpstart another war, and it would be fomented through a false flag terror event to be blamed on Osama bin Laden. 75 days later, it happened exactly as he predicted. He continued promoting that theory on his shortwave radio network for another 55 days until shot dead by police officers attempting to take him into custody on November 5th, 2001.